Morning, everybody. I'm Jason, the Wizard of Ops, and with me, as always, is Jay, Dark Matter. Jay, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
I can't complain. It was too quick, I guess is the only thing I could complain about. But otherwise, an amazing weekend. Get to recharge. How about yourself?
Well, complaints aside, I mean, it was good. We actually are. You can see my new beautiful housescape behind me. It's actually we're away, so we're in beautiful Williamsburg here to have like
Nice.
a multi-family vacation. So it's fun. We'll be dodging raindrops all week long, and yeah, so so it's good. Even on OPEX week, you can hang out and go somewhere else.
That's right. You can get life going, huh? You can do other things. The power of
All right.
Volland.
What'd you say?
I said the power of Volland gives you vacation
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Especially, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I do swing trading on Volland typically. I mean, when we have you on, you do a lot of day trading kind of future strategies, but most of the time, sometimes it's not as good, but most of the time, if you trust the data on Volland, it rewards you, and you don't have to sit there and watch it 24/7. And I like that. So,
Yeah, I agree. Do
especially
you want
since
to
most of the days I'm busy. So what?
do you want to quickly just for our viewers just to recap like give your
Yeah,
Substack?
yeah,
Yeah, you want to just quickly recap that because I always
sure. I
sometimes
mean,
forget to be quite honest.
yeah, I mean, so over the past week, I mean, over really the past several weeks, um, I've been saying on this show that we're range bound between 6,200 and 6,300. You've been talking about kind of like any kind of bullish activity, more in a shorter time frame, and your levels on your trade plans. I can tell you, I speak for myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking for you. Over the past couple weeks, we've crushed it. I mean, I've been quite profitable over these past couple weeks. Mostly like theta neutral strategy or theta positive strategies. Not quite delta neutral, like kind of leaning positive delta, but butterflies, condors. I think I have a calendar and a diagonal on right now to kind of scoop up any of those Trump downsides. But yeah, I mean, I as far as I'm concerned, we've been crushing it. I think even like over the past several months, the only time that I actually got caught off guard was the ceasefire reaching above 6,000. And it caused that really large rally to all-time highs. But even before then, we said that's a possibility, right? We talked
Hmm.
about all-time high down by 6,000 when the market was at 5,900 something. We talked about the possibility of 6,000 being broken, and if that got broken, we had a chance to hit all-time highs. At the time, it was not the number one probability, but I guess that's when real big breakouts happen, is when it's not the number one probability and everybody's chasing that second probability. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was the only time that I think that our primary over the past, I guess, like 2-3 months, that's the only time our primary uh, prognostication has not been what happened. I mean, you could talk about how you've been doing, Jay, as we recap over the past, I guess almost quarter. How have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been really good. I think one of my better weeks was actually that was the week I was in Greece, right? And I was trading
Yeah.
a lot of futures action that week, and it was amazing. Like I usually stay up late to trade those hours, but that was my morning and my daytime, right? And it was just great to see, the volume levels holding. I didn't have to panic or anything. I just sat and watched, and it was probably one of my better weeks of the year, to be quite honest with you, right? And uh, maybe I need to move to Europe, is what I'm saying. No, but I think you're right. Like we set this. I remember because like you and I were prepping for that show a couple of months ago. We're like, or a month ago, excuse me. We're like, hey, if we break over the 6,000, this all-time high is very doable, right? And here we
Mhm.
are. We basically hit almost 6,300 last week. But I mean I think you have to take your bias away. This is why I wanted to kind of just review this with you. Is we took our bias away. I could have put my political mindset in and said, no way, tariffs are bad, this, that, and that, right? And I would have been short the market down a bunch of money. But with the data in front of us, it told us not to short, right? Especially us intraday traders, the past couple of weeks has been all about mean reversion. And last week was
Mhm.
that. Like we kind of talked about 6,200. We talked about 6,300. We basically ping pong between those levels last week, right? And I think as a intermediate short term trader, there's going to be more of that this week, unfortunately. But I think after we had that clean Liberation Day recovery, post Liberation Day, it has been a little bit harder, no doubt, as an intraday trader. But I think the data is still there. We've been pretty dead on with this, whether you're swinging or even day trading. The levels are playing out. You just have to. That bias is the key thing, Jason. Is the success, right? Is you got to get that bias back
A-
the door.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, yeah, when we watch like CNBC or, Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg or something like that, a lot of that financial news can cloud your mind, and it's not real data. I mean, people, sometimes obviously people around me, in person know what I do for a living and ask me questions and ask me, what do you think about Amazon? Or, by the way, if you're out there and you meet me in person and you ask me, what do I think about Amazon or Microsoft or something, prepare to get a snarky answer. And I give the snarky answer every time. Like anyway, I'm not going to get into what my kids' friends' parents like. Just being around them, I'm like, oh man, come on. So anyway, um, that being said,
Some
a lot of
PTSD
times when
there, I
people,
see, huh?
yeah, and a lot of times what financial news does, it justifies your prior bias, and people will be shorting this market and they'll say, well, tariffs, why is the market still going up? Trump just announced a tariff on Canada, or now, the EU, or, why is the market still going up? Why haven't we sold off to, 3,000 already? And, the truth is that the market is not about narratives. Narratives are how retail trades and why retail blows it, right? Like the market is about other people's positioning. It's about, not just dealers, like people, like institutions or hedge funds or other retail. Other retail is the largest portion of the market. It's what creates the risk, right? Risk takers. So
Yep.
that, it's more like a poker game, right? You play the people, not the cards, kind of thing, right? The cards matter, tariffs matter, but you play the people, right? And that's kind of the mindset you have to have going into playing markets. uh, and sometimes it's scary. I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm short gamma in, while Trump's sending off tariff letters, I'm short gamma, and that's scary. That's scary. But but it works. You gotta trust. I have my economic mind, right, and then I have my market mind, and I sometimes they intersect, and yeah, there's like a little Venn diagram, but they are not completely covering each other, and they can't be, because the market is measuring something different than the economy is. So, with that being said, let's talk about the real market movers and not so much all the tariff junk that we see. So,
Yeah, let's jump into there. I mean, really quickly, just for a recap for everyone last week, I think again, I briefly said it here. Last Monday, we were, call it bullish mean reversion, is how I
Mhm,
would like classify myself last week. I think you as I'm going to just label you. I think you're
mhm,
on the same page here, but we had called out on Monday, because we did have that drop in futures action overnight.
mhm.
It's funny, the theme over the weekends, right? You drop in futures Monday night, you come in, you find a support level Monday. Wink, wink. We might be doing that here today again. And then you rally out of that support level, right? And so last week, I even remember in your zero DTE channel, for those who are in Volland here, Wiz posts, zero DTE updates. But I think you even said, he's like, that's the low. You know, you're like, that's the low for the week. And while we might have gone like 10 or 15 points, close to that low, we held that low. And 6,200 was your opportunity there. You buy a weekly out on that if you're, even trading shorter dated options. But we held that level. And yes, it was grindy action, unfortunately. Like, that's with no catalyst last week. Captain Condor on top of that. Like, we had a pretty slow, grindy week up. VIX getting kind of compressed during that. We did hit a high of 62.90, and we called it for that fade as well. I know you and I were both talking on multiple times last week. Hey, 6,300 doesn't look possible, and then we got Condor Man sitting there at 62.90 as well. So all in all, just to kind of recap here for the group, our trade plan, our bias. So Monday, we're find the support, by the bounce, basically by the dip. If you bought that, that was the low of the week. Going into Tuesday and Wednesday, we kind of talked about just grindy action, take, target to target your profits if you're trading intraday. And then we found a little bit of coiling on Thursday finally. We broke to 62.90, right? Our call there was mainly, yes, sure, you could write that wave up, but the better move is finding the fade or the rejection from the highs there. So that's what we kind of called out. And then just Friday's become the day of boringness, is what the day of bore, Wiz. We were like, hey, this is just mean reversion neutral. It's ping pong, whatever you want to call it. Classic dealer pinning Friday. That's what you got Friday.
All right.
If you did trade, it was a pretty bad day. Your
All right.
thoughts on last week?
So mentally, I had like three different things that I wanted to comment on. The first thing is, I think the proper word is boredom, not boringness.
Sorry.
You
Yes. Yes.
you took a verb, made it present participle, made it a noun, and it has its own word, dude. It's boredom.
Hey, man, I'm the Webster Dictionary here this morning. What other words do you want?
You want to make up words? Let's make up words.
That's right.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is the effect of Captain Condor. I will wait until after you're done with the plan, but what that trade actually does for markets. And I know that it's a one DTE trade most of the time, but I did want to talk about the impact of that. And then, yeah, I mean, just as a recap of last week, I mean, I kind of did it a little bit in the beginning, but yeah, I mean, we're just going to bounce between 6,300 and 6,200, probably lean more towards 6,300 because of how positive Vanna is. But I did want to call out that this is OPEX week. So a lot of that positive Vanna is going to fade and go, fade a little bit into Friday. Usually that kind of fading starts on Wednesday. So, yeah, and I think that's the thing to remember for this week. But yeah, last week played out very well. So
yeah, well, good segue. Let's jump into this week. So you nailed OPEX week. So again, for you intraday traders, you got to just take profit, from level to level, right? There's OPEX weeks are always like this, just mean reversion, bouncy, McBouncy, right? So keep that in mind. You've, Wiz nailed it there. You also have, Wiz, the start of earnings week. I'm looking forward to this fun that is earnings season again. So a few highlights out there. Obviously, from the tech, you've got Netflix, TSMC, and ASML. But financials will be the big, in the sector on the lookout here. So you got Citi, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs. I think U.S. Bank. I think those were the major ones, at least for this week, and we've got a slew of them next week, obviously. But any initial thoughts here, just on earnings week?
yeah, I mean, as everybody who has a paid Substack or follows me on Substack knows that I do some earnings. This is going to be OPEX week and earnings, and even though I'm in Williamsburg, I will do those analyses. So, but yeah, the thing that I don't like, as far as like trading options, especially, I don't like having them on Tuesday. I like the Thursday ones more because then your expiration's closer. But yeah, I think, I saw a chart. I don't remember who. I think it was like a Goldman Sachs chart or something, where they had a bar chart of earnings and the expected earnings, and expected earnings was always short of earnings. The way even during COVID time, expected earnings were way worse than what the actual earnings were.
Yeah.
So it's funny, and so it kind of, I think that the default is expect earnings to beat, every single time. I do think that I don't think earnings will be impacted this quarter as much as it will be next for tariffs, but that's really what to start. That's really always what to keep an eye on is what are these companies going to say about tariffs and the impact that those will have on the markets. I
What
think I
was
hope.
also
Mhm.
what was also interesting overnight, China had come out with their trade numbers for the month of June, and it actually was a month, it was an increase for them. So again, it's like the macro, you're looking at the macro there, you're like, hey, all's good, right? So I agree with you. I don't see us, this is not a bear market. I'll just leave it at
No,
that.
no, not yet, not
Not
yet.
yet. Not yet. All right, let's jump into some of the levels now that we've recapped last week.
Mhm.
We are here. I'm glad you and I found our homes for the time being. Uh, and everyone else, we know where we're at on a Monday morning. So, event catalysts, there's a lot was going on here this week, which is funny. It's a tough one with OpEx, right? That's where I just kind of say you have to take your profits at key levels this week because let's say you get a softer inflation, we rally, you hit 6,300. It doesn't mean coast is clear. Just putting it out there, right? So CPI obviously is the big one here tomorrow. Then we've got PPI on Wednesday. Then we got retail sales. Housing starts. This is a good one to kind of keep an eye. I should have had unemployment claims there Thursday as well. Apologies, but I like to keep housing starts, unemployment claims just close by. And
Mhm.
then you've got Friday consumer sentiment and inflation expectations. Any thoughts on this week's catalyst?
I think CPI is everybody's kind of waiting for tariffs to have an impact on CPI. Um, as far as I see, the expectations are similar. And, if we start hitting that 2% and even, kind of staying in that range, people are going to expect the Fed to be able to cut without danger. So
Yeah, and I
I
and I
think,
think I think
mhm,
India had their CPI today. I mean, just not to compare us to India by any means, but like they had their coolest rating in 6 years,
yeah,
CPI wise. So like that's just putting it out there. I mean, go
yeah.
ahead.
I'm looking up now what the implied volatility is for options for tomorrow's zero DTE, and it's actually not. It's barely registering. Today's implied volatility is 16.71% on SPX, and tomorrow's is 16.11. Now, usually that's normal to have that little bit of backwardation, um, but yeah, it's only a 48 point straddle for tomorrow. So I think the market almost doesn't care. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think, yeah, and I don't think CPI is actually going to have that huge. I don't project it having a major deviation from expectations. So,
I think the only curiosity that I have of how this plays out is more with Trump and the administration and what it means for Powell. If they get louder with him wanting, forcing to resign or whatever is happening in the background, I'm just curious how that plays out depending on what
yeah,
that number is.
it seems like Powell has like tunnel vision, right? Like people ask him like, what do you think about Trump telling you? I don't even know if he knows what Trump is tweeting at him. Like, I don't even think he knows. I don't think he cares. He doesn't know. He's just like, he's got that like academic mind, it seems, where he's just completely focused on exactly what he's supposed to do. And
Yeah.
it bugs Trump, I guess. So he does doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
Truth Social post where he's like, I tried to be nice. I tried to be mean. He doesn't do anything. Like,
Yeah. 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 But I think he
but
should be
anyway,
fired. And,
yeah,
but what do I know, right?
Powell's like, you can't fire me, punk.
Uh, so speaking of your
I would love to hear him say punk.
your volatility there, kind of bored. Like, there's about 89, 87 points is what they're
Mm-hmm.
expecting on the week to move. So to your point, not a lot of volatility. There's 89 points for a week with this many catalysts, like Wiz.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that like in a couple years. Like CPI week has always been a constant, like we're gonna get 100 point plus kind of weekly move here. And we're not even like, I looked at Thinkorswim as well. I was manually looking at the straddle price. I'm like, is this thing right? And yeah, sure enough, when I was looking at both sides of it, it came about 89 points on the week is the implied move here. So that's what you have, which kind of puts you around 61.70 and about 63.50, call it. So it's a tight range for what I thought would be much, much more larger. But anyway,
Plus, it's
let's jump.
OPEX week with a lot of traffic on it. So it's kind of, you're right. It's very strange.
It's very strange.
Seems
Let's
too
keep
low.
going. Seems too low. That's what I was like. What's the mistake here?
Well,
All right.
another thing, just to really quick note, is skew is very flat. Like while it's low at the money, skew on the wings is pretty high. So, so when I say flat, by that I mean, like the expected range, the expected price. So I guess you could say it's very steep. Skew is technically from a implied volatility standpoint, but like out in the wings, that's where a lot of the buys are happening, and where IV is highest. So it's basically you want to almost have like the way, if you're just pricing implied volatility, you want to buy at the money and sell the wings. But as you know, that's not the that's not the necessarily the correct answer. You'd be losing quite a bit right now if you were just trading implied volatility trends.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's jump into that. Let's jump into the Greeks now. So I guess just a couple of call outs here. So gamma, there's pretty large gamma still at 6,300. That has been holding us from moving the market above that. So keep an eye out on that. We did, traverse overnight through like a bunch of negative gamma. Found some support at a positive gamma and some delta there. So let's just jump right in. For this week, Wiz, I'll let you go ahead and start first, and then I'll jump back into my trade plan here. But I'm still very much in a mean reversion here. Unless CPI surprises us, whether upside or downside majorly, I think we're pretty contained within the OPEX week here as well. I thought if 6,200, if it can still be defended, it's not as strong as a support, but it's still support in my opinion if we were to touch it. But what are your thoughts on the week?
Yeah. So again, this is OPEX week. So this is the week where a lot of that Vanna support, that 62 to 6,300 starts to be more likely to be broken. You probably got until Wednesday if you got any short gamma turn, trades just on the data, but we can swing with CPI and bank earnings and stuff. We could swing either way. It's an interesting OPEX because while we have this range between 62 and 6,300, the following month, the following OPEX month with August, we've got support down to 6,200, but it's that 62.75, 62.80 area that means the most. If we are above it, then we can run for August up to new highs, be like 6,400 area. But if we close, this week below that, Vanna is neutral, and if we pass down by 6,200, we're going to have another situation like we did right before the ceasefire, where something positive will break out back to the upside, probably up to 6,400, or something negative can put us in the toilet. So it's going to be one of those months and even this week, you kind of have to be you have to start to be nimble this week, and you have to be nimble over the next OPEX month about what the market will do. And these levels are going to be very important. So I would pay attention definitely to Jay's trade plan, because he's going to call out these levels pretty well. So
yeah, and I think just to add on there, we also have Vixpiration. I think that's the 16th Wednesday, if I am
I think so. Yeah.
back. Yeah. Okay, great. So that's going to be another like rough day, right? Although we'll get past CPI, let's say PPI will be there, but then we've got Vixpiration that typically has a little bit of volatility in the week as well, a little bit of a sell-off. So like, if you think we hit, I'm just making this up, but let's say you hit 6,200 today, you hold that support, you bounce back, you think we're going to grind up like we did last week? No, there's a good chance you hit whatever level out of 6,200 and you come right back and you ping pong back and you do one of these. So if you are a short dated trader, like options wise this week, it's not the week to hold those, right? You got to go like, because of the decay and the mean reversion impacts here throughout the week, you're just going to lose a lot of your premium insanely, right? So that's why, you got to like lock and load 10 to 15 points. That's what I typically do on a week like this. And if I get 10 points, I'm extremely happy. Stop loss set, I walk away, right? Like that's, for a short dated traders, this is the week where you can kill a good week pretty quickly if you're not careful with that. So that was just my PSA for the week.
All right. What's we got?
Yep, I guess, let me just kind of call out just in terms of just some trade ideas there. I didn't get to that really quickly. So again, just the key levels here, 6,300, 62.75, 85, this kind of just whole 10-point zone there. That's going to be a little bit critical. 62.50 is just really an intraday pivot is how I would look at today. And we broke it, overnight. We sold below it. We have stayed below that level, even 62.40, which is a little bit on the charm side. So intraday, I'd be looking at 62.40, 62.50, right? Below that, we're either going to be choppy or try to, go for that 6,200 support. Otherwise, if you want to find another leg, it's got to break 62.50. And then should you break 6,200, is a pretty deep, quick, and fast cut is how I would look at it, is 61.50, 61.75, that can come pretty quick on the week. And so based on those just levels, how I would kind of look at some trade ideas here, you can still potentially look, I wouldn't short this before CPI at this point. This was your short coming in overnight into the trade, so kind of X-nate this guy here. But now you're potentially looking at longs, and then if you're on the week here looking for a breakout long, it's got to get through 85 and 6,300. Like those are the two key levels here. You could potentially enter around 62.75 and hold your stop loss around there. But that's essentially kind of what I'm looking at on the week. Wiz, any thoughts?
No, I agree. I like it. 6,200 shouldn't, if it breaks, go long.
Yeah, that's kind of.
I mean, I know you have your future, so you're gonna have to like be cautious and find the bottom. But 6,200 breaks within the first couple days, like up to Wednesday, maybe Thursday, go long. If it's breaking on Friday, then you have to have some long gamma moves ready for August. So.
Great.
Yeah, where we end up on Thursday and Friday is going to determine where we go for the next month. So you're going to have to tune in next week for that. So
agreed. Yeah, there's not a lot of. I mean, I was. I don't know if you saw while you're talking. I pulled up the August expiration. Like, yeah, you have the magnet here, the massive pull at 6,400. But you got to let this visual here. You'll just watch it throughout this week. You're going to start to see these levels shift, the data improve, and that's when you're starting to see the hand play here. Again, your goal should not be, can I exactly guess the top and the bottom here, right? Wait for the data to come in, get your thesis, and then you attack is how you want to do this.
Yeah. All right. We do have a couple questions. I'm actually going to go with Shell Queen first because it is the easiest to answer, and you can answer it, Jay. How do you get your
Yeah,
implied weekly move?
yeah. So it is not a formula. You can, I mean, this is widely available if you have Thinkorswim as well. So there's Thinkorswim, like in their options chain. You go to the very last day of the week, for example, and you'll see
Mhm.
kind of this range. I mean, it's changed since Sunday, yesterday, right? Because markets technically moved and opened. But you'll see a range there on Friday. You'll even see the implied volatility kind of for the week per day, even. So if you have Thinkorswim, it starts there. Otherwise, you can Google it. Usually, the straddle moves and things of that nature.
Yeah, the Thinkorswim is actually very similar. They all you do is on your brokerage platform, whatever the closest to the price is, closest to spot. You buy a put, buy a call, whatever that price is, that's the expected move. So yeah, it's a formula, but a very easy formula. So, all right. So now Jay has anticipated the next question. Can you go over the Vanna heat map? What does the color gradient mean, green to yellow? So, Vanna heat map here. If you want to zoom in a little bit, the Vanna heat
Yeah.
map um, for each option, it is calculating the current dealer Vanna exposure times the change in fixed price volatility. Okay. Fixed price volatility, what that means is the IV on that option, not like VIX or any kind of like global change in implied volatility. It's how you calculate Vanna, right? Is using fixed price vol. So what this shows, the green side, okay, is a positive move in Vanna exposure for that from that option, and the red side is a negative change in Vanna exposure for that option. Okay, what that does is it will show you the more positive it is, the more kind of like of a magnet it becomes, and with not, assuming no changes in pricing, which on something as liquid as SPX, the change in pricing doesn't happen because of a Vanna change. Those options right there are a better deal. Okay, like just from a implied volatility standpoint, those options are a better deal, or it would be more of a magnet, or that kind of thing, assuming implied volatility moves the way you want it to. The red is the opposite. Okay, it kind of reduces the magnetism of that strike, or you can count it as reducing, like when you look at the whole thing, the whole picture, reducing aggregate Vanna a bit, right? Um, so that's essentially what the Vanna heat map does. When you're looking, let's say you are bearish or whatever, and you're looking at that green strike is probably a better target than it was yesterday, right? It's just kind of showing you how each of these strikes Vanna exposure is changing, and it gives you kind of an idea of which strikes actually buy or sell or whatever. Um, so really, you don't want to sell below that green line right there. Does that make sense to you, Jay? Or I'm
It
trying to
does.
make it very practical. I'm trying to keep the math as far away from out of it as possible. But
No, it totally makes sense to me.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, this is also like an opportunity for you to kind of come in here to see what options are discounted or, quote unquote discounted or
Mhm.
losing premium. And then if it fits within your thesis, right, there's like an opportunity right there, whether it's long or short, to look into that. So that's how I typically also kind of come in here and use the heat map. It's very handy for something like that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I use it to help me pick strikes. Quite simply. That particular one I think is a little bit out of my range right now, but is that 6,200? What is that? That green?
This the dark green one here is about 6450, and
Yeah,
then the lighter one here is about 66,050. Sixty
yeah.
fifty, excuse me.
So this is a little bit out of my range. What's the what date is that? I can't even see that.
815. So next stop X.
Okay. So that's for
next
the next
topic
trade.
straight. Yeah. Yes. Next
Yeah. So I
topics.
mean, those are like kind of targets, right? Now like 60-50, you could if you're expecting implied volatility to go up, and let's say the tariff thing becomes real or something, the market, that would be a nice target. Maybe, like let's say we do go down to that 6,200 plateau we talked about. 60-50 might be a good target for buying your puts, or if you think that's the way the market's going to go. So that's what this heat map shows you. It is very helpful. It's kind of, it's probably closer to like an institutional view, but a lot of people like institutional views, so they want to see that. So yeah. All right, we got 10 minutes before market opens, and I know Jay's got to ramp up when market opens.
That's right. I'm getting anxious to jump in there. Yeah.
But we do have another question. Can you go over your version of a long gamma play? Sure. Long gamma means that you are essentially like a net buyer of vol. So a long gamma vertical, even if you're just buying an option, buying a naked call or a put, that's a long gamma play. If you go to the Volland Academy, that www.vol.land/academy, there are a bunch of long gamma plays in Wiz's trade plans. An out of the money butterfly or calendar, like way out of the money. But most of the time when you hear long gamma, it's referring to either a vertical or just like a long option, a call or a put or something like that. When I was talking about kind of like a delta neutral long gamma play, that would be buying a straddle or a strangle. That is buying like a put and a call. But if it goes in either direction very strongly, you profit, right? That kind of thing is a delta neutral long gamma play. You can almost say it's like the opposite of a butterfly or the opposite of a condor, right? That's kind of, those condors are long or short gamma. So, typically, if you are long gamma, you are negative theta. They say theta is the price of gamma. So that's, those are long gamma plays. Yeah, that's what I got. I hope I answered your question sufficiently. But if I didn't, go to the Volland Academy. It is free, free education, but it does assume that you have some knowledge of options before you go into it. I didn't want to make videos that rehash everything everybody says already. So
thank you for bringing more fresh content to the world.
Anyway, so that's what we got. It is 9:24. This is one of our longer things, and we didn't even get to Netflix earnings or anything. So,
but guess what? You will be doing that in your Substack, so you won't disappoint anyone there. We will definitely get to Netflix and Wiz's Substack.
Yep, it was a busy show. So, so thank you everybody for tuning in, and may Volland help you in your future trading ventures.